conversation forward. Well, we're back in the studio, and welcome back to another episode of the Always About People Show. We've got another really fascinating topic to cover today, all about recruitment, people, talent. Do you have the right people? Can you find the right people? How do you find the right people? We're going to cover all of those topics today. For those of you who don't know, I'm your host, Chris Allen. It is good to be with you again. And I am excited to introduce you to my friend, Jason Bessire. Jason, welcome to the studio.
It's great to be here, Chris, picking up where we left off.
Yeah, it's so fun to have you here. And we are going to cover a topic that we're hearing across the country from leaders, from organizations. How do I find the right people? How can I find the right people, Jason? This is the question we're going to address today. And we've seen that the labor market has changed. The labor market has changed over the past couple of years. The Great Resignation. Now people are quiet quitting. We've covered that topic in a prior show, but there's so many assumptions out here, biases about the workforce.
Yeah. And
as I get an opportunity to speak and talk, what I'm trying to help people understand is, it may have more to do with us, the leaders of organizations, how we're going about finding people, the environments that we're creating. But today we specifically want to talk about the tools that we use, the assets that we use, the ways that we go about trying to find the right people for our organization, because it's always about people, Jason.
I promise you it's going to be an exciting topic. We're going to cover a lot of stuff at lightning speed. There's lots of angles to approach it. So I'm excited.
Yeah,
it's good to be here.
Well, Jason is the president of Basir Associates. They are a recruitment advertising. They do a little bit of RPO, recruitment, processing, outsourcing.
Yeah.
And they work on behalf of organizations all over the country. And I'm excited for you to hear a little bit more about what he does. But I want to set it up with another question, maybe a challenge. And that is, I think the labor market's changing again.
Oh, yeah.
And we've got inflation, recessionary pressures, interest rates increasing. Some companies are looking at their labor and their talent and trying to figure out, all right, what does this look like in the future? What does this look like over the next couple of years? And so there's a lot of questions that even our guests who are watching may be asking. I want to remind our guests, those of you who are watching this live, please send in your thoughts, comments, questions. We'd love to get to them on the air. We can see them, and we would love to address specific issues that you're wrestling with or dealing with. And if you happen to be watching this as a recording, I just want to encourage you to still send in comments, thoughts, questions. We can still get to those. Social media is an amazing platform.
Absolutely.
And regardless of what platform you're watching this on, we'd love to answer or at least address the questions that you have. So Jason, let's jump into this.
Let's do it.
I think maybe start by just sharing with all of our viewers. Tell me a little bit more about Basir Associates. What's your secret sauce? What's your superpower?
Oh gosh. I don't think there's really a superpower of Basir Associates. Maybe it happens to be just time in the space, getting historical. I've been in the recruitment space for 25 years. Back in 96 to 2009, our organization was the second largest sales job fair producing company in the United States. We all know what happened in 09, and then that blew up.
Yeah.
And 09, 10, and 11. And then 2011, I was praying, asking if I needed to really stay in the business, if I wanted to be in ministry. You and I walked through that season on my behalf back in the day. And with much prayerful consideration, I ended up deciding I was going to stay in the recruitment space. And I was going to do that through recruitment advertising. And I actually had a vendor that was providing the services that I now provide today for my customers. And I had a good example of what I am producing now and doing for my customers to have done that for me. And anyway, it was a guy named Evan out of New York. And in 2011, we hung out our shingle as recruitment advertising experts.
Yeah.
And since then till today, 2022, we have been really focusing on being a reseller of recruitment advertising and strategizing on companies' recruitment brands, helping them have their assets under management to provide some type of benchmark to be able to say, yes, this works, no, this doesn't work. And that's our focus today. And help looking at clients, consulting with them, and giving them some expertise around that topic.
That's great.
Yeah.
So just to kind of maybe sum that up.
Yeah.
When we think about recruiting, you can either go and hire a recruiter,
Right.
also known as a headhunter. You can go hire a recruiter to find somebody for you.
Right.
Or you can utilize tools that are out there.
Right.
A lot of people are aware of how you can post a job to a job board, but some may not even be able to use those job boards correctly or understand how those assets work. And so Basir and Associates helps clients and businesses and companies understand how to utilize the assets that they have more effectively. In some cases, how to save money. In some cases, how to measure.
Yeah, that's key.
And in some cases, how to effectively and efficiently use capital to recruit. But we're going to talk about all of that today. Let's go back to the beginning, though.
Okay.
What are you seeing in the workplace today in terms of recruiting? Does it seem to still be an issue in finding the right talent?
You know, I was watching your last episode about this quiet quitting thing, and I think about some of my customers who are looking for service technicians, and you put together a slate of qualified, pre-screened, interested candidates about a field service technician position, and the customer says, I had a 50 to 80% no-show ratio. They just ghosted me. They said they were going to show up for the interview, but they didn't show up. And it's almost predictive in that space. I have other clients who have unrealistic expectations, particularly in the skilled labor industry, the trucking industry, the healthcare industry, expecting to have very large volumes of spend and expecting the large volume of candidates. Companies today are not seeing that. And there's some answers to that dilemma. I still think there's a significant frustration around just finding candidates who are going to do what they say they're going to do. I mean, even filling out a company's application process. It's such a systemic issue. There's so many avenues that we could go down, but those are just some of my thoughts right off the bat.
Okay. Is finding talent an industry-specific issue?
Is it an industry specific? I think there's some positions that are harder to fill than others, but across the board, as I think about my clientele, regionally, nationally, and worldwide, we touch base with accounting and finance, IT, pickers and packers, industrial. I think about restaurants. I think about companies that need cooks. I think about people who need CNAs. I think about nonprofit organizations that we work in profit. The problem is the same across the board. I need more quality. I need more quantity. I need candidates that meet my hiring profile, that are interested, that will work through my recruitment process. And it's across the board. No, I think every company is experiencing the frustration. And just visited a company up north here in Charlotte, and their business is booming. And they haven't been able to fill all the needs within the organization because it's just a lack of talent. We need more people. We need more folks to be able to do the job. So he's running at probably 40%, 50% of 100% of his capacity just because he can't find the right talent.
Okay. So for those of you who may think, I think it's just me. It must be just our company. It must be just our industry that's been hit hard. Here you've heard it from an expert. It's across the board.
Yeah.
It's every industry.
Yeah.
It's across the country.
Mhm.
This isn't specific to a geographical area.
No.
We have a workforce that we need to figure out how to recruit and advertise
Yeah.
and get in front of.
Yeah. And when I talk about recruitment advertising, just for the purposes of today, there's 3 ways to recruit that we'll just say.
Yeah.
A, you can do it yourself. Or B, you can hire a search firm, headhunter placement firm, and there's definitely place in the marketplace for a qualified third-party recruitment advertising expert to do some of that heavy lifting for you.
Yeah.
If you're not good at recruiting or you don't like doing that hard work, you can outsource it at a cost.
Mhm.
But third, there's this RPO, recruitment process outsourcing, where we dabble in that space, and our focus, 80% of our work in the RPO space really has to do with advertising, really consulting about their recruitment brand, and really taking a very close look at the tools that they're using to fill the top of the funnel.
Yeah.
And that's key. What are you doing to fill the top of the funnel? And that's really where the majority of our work stays. Everything from what's your referral look like, of employees referring other employees into the organization. Do you have a healthy, robust referral program? One that you respect, that's lucrative enough for them to want to bring. Are you projecting a recruitment brand that will really attract that type of talent? All these are roads that you and I both know we could run down and talk for ad nauseum. And we can maybe pick some a little bit of time, but those are some big rocks that I can think of. But I'll just say right now, I think a lot of big companies and small companies really haven't really thought about this. They're too busy working on the business. Big companies, Fortune 500 companies that I consult with, they really are they're still 5 years and 10 years in the past, honestly.
Wow.
Their CRMs are clunky. They have a lot of friction in the CRM, the ATS, the applicant tracking system, and candidates are not learning about their company because they don't project their brand in a way that's digestible to the applicant. They're not projecting that brand in a favorable way that talks about you and I both, mission, vision, values, culture. We could talk about that. But those are all stress points by a company not taking time to think about their thinking about recruitment.
All right, let's go back to a few things you just mentioned about the top of the funnel.
Oh yeah.
And then let's spend the majority of our time talking through assets and how to best utilize those.
Okay.
But a couple things at the top of the funnel. Number one, referral program.
Mm-hmm.
One of the most important questions about culture and organization is, do I have employees who are willing to tell other people about my company?
Yeah.
like they would have to be engaged to want to tell other people.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, there are strategies for referral bonuses and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
But the bottom line is, if you haven't been intentional about building a culture that people want to actually talk about, that's a place to start.
Huge. I mean, a lot of companies that I talk to, they haven't even documented it. And if they have documented it, they certainly haven't projected it. And you and I both would agree, it starts at the top down. I mean, the president, the C-suite, somewhere at the top, not just HR, needs to say, we want to be a place where you want to work. And you better be projecting that through both a positive recruitment brand on your website. Yes, on your website. I'll go to your website when I consult with a company and look at the very top in the global navigation bar, and they talk about all of their company products. They don't ever project anything about their employment, their opportunities, or careers, or people. And then you need to dedicate some real content to the topic. And then to really elevate, video is much more powerful. And here we are talking on video than just content. I mean, give me some testimonials of people really happy doing the job at your organization that you're looking to recruit for, and hear a happy person talking about it, and then push that out on social, push that out in your recruitment narrative. Just a couple things.
Yeah. So you've got this intentional focus on culture, but secondly, an intentional focus on your recruitment brand, or recruitment marketing. And a lot of people don't even understand that term, Jason. It's like, well, we have marketing.
Mm-hmm.
But we live in a day and age right now where recruitment marketing, the ability for me to tell the story, to tell our purpose, to connect people to something greater, is really, really important.
I got to inject here. I had a conversation with a worldwide steel company based in the Carolinas, and the HR person that I spoke with, after we were talking, we had a really energetic conversation, but she wanted to reschedule a call because she understood that the dialogue we were having around recruitment, branding, marketing, you can't have a recruitment HR conversation without bringing marketing into the fold. Today, in today's day and age, those two departments need to meet at the table in the C-suite, and they need to have a voice in the conversation.
Wow. And
it is so important. And she scheduled another call, and it was a week later. The CMO came to the table. Another couple of talent acquisition people came to the table, and it was a very energetic conversation as we just digested what her and I talked about just in the HR suite. Oh, that needed to be a global conversation. And so we're making some great strides to incorporate bidding, better project our brand. And this is a company, after a little deeper dive, I found out actually had a lot of assets weighted on one particular vendor, but was absent with a couple of other very important vendors to have a right mix of recruitment tools to be like a four-legged stool, to be a firm stool that was covering all of its bases. It's another conversation.
All right. So no. This is so good. The practical takeaways.
Yeah.
Be practical about the culture that you're trying to establish.
Oh, definitely. You've got to project it. You've got to have a voice in the conversation. You've got to be able to project that. Even with compensation, don't leave it to Indeed to project what kind of compensation that your position. If you don't put compensation out there in the recruitment messaging, Indeed's going to put something up for you. That comes as quite of a shock to so many companies. Like, that's not my compensation. Well, if you don't, that's part of the rules with compensation transparency now with Indeed.com. And you'll see that in the next 6 to 9 months. That will become the standard.
All right. Second thing is just around recruitment marketing. If you're not bringing marketing into the conversation with people inside your organization, you're missing a huge opportunity.
Huge opportunity.
Marketing is not just about the product that you have.
No.
It's about marketing the internal brand, the recruitment brand of your company.
Yeah, absolutely. And you better be doing that now because your competitors are doing it. And get on with the program here.
All right. Before we just jump on, I think you were the one who told me there's a stat out there on how many pieces of information a candidate will look at or view before deciding to apply.
Yeah.
Can you speak to that?
Yeah, in the sales, particularly my 25 years of work in the recruitment space, a lot of it focused on outside sales. But today, the most recent data tells us that sales professionals, outside B2B sales professionals, look at about 18 different data points. 18 different data points to be able to consider whether they want to come work for you. And to curate those data points when they're looking, they typically type in your company name and they type the word jobs. If you haven't done that, do that today. Do that on a Google bar, and then up will pop up your recruitment brand, and you'll find out how they find out about you and your organization and what people are saying. Yeah. There could be some negative content that you've turned a blind eye to and stuck your head in as an ostrich, and you're not speaking to, that's landed on Indeed.com and has people talking about you in a way that's negative that you don't want to, or maybe you don't know how to talk about it. Yeah. That would be a good conversation for us to have. We have a whole department that just focuses directly on a service that helps you manage your recruitment branding content. If you don't like to do that and don't know the right words to speak, you can outsource that. Not a problem.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
All right. So the takeaway, go Google yourself.
Yeah.
Search yourself. Find out what is being said about you on the internet.
Don't let candidates have the last word. I mean, some companies, I've heard them wrestle with this idea. There's a company that I know of in particular that's really wrestled with this a lot, and they just had their head in the sand. And I said, no, you need to speak up. You need to answer every positive or negative review and say thank you, or speak to it in a politically smart, strategically well-worded way.
Okay. We're going to pause there because I have so many founders, CEOs that are frustrated with Glassdoor.
Okay.
Because anyone can say anything. Is your recommendation to respond to any comment made on Glassdoor?
If you don't respond, then you're letting the candidate have the last word. That's the way I would answer that.
There you go. So for those of you frustrated with the platform, figure out a way to respond to both positive and negative commentary.
Yeah. And there's a very correct way that you need to be responding. There's a professional and appropriate way to respond. And I'm about engage your own recruitment brand, own it. And we can help you with that.
Okay. Let's move on to assets. Before I just move on, I want to remind you, those of you who are watching us live, feel free to send in any questions, comments, thoughts, ideas, anything.
Give me your top 2 or 3 recruitment challenges.
There you
and
go.
Let's talk about real scenarios where we have spoken to that particular situation. And let's see if we can't put a solution together, even live on the phone.
There you go. It's a challenge. Video. It's a challenge. Okay. Let's go to assets, recruitment assets. Define what a recruitment asset is for people.
Well, here's a card. Here we go. I'll put it up to the screen. These are assets. If your company uses any of these assets, you may recognize a logo or two. These are what we call assets.
Okay.
We are vendor neutral, by the way. I don't care what asset we want to engage. We'll just want to use more of what works. But the 800-pound gorilla recruitment asset, you see that they sponsor the Super Bowl, happens to be that tool called Indeed.com. I remember back in 2011 and 2010 when they were kind of getting their start, everybody's trying to figure it out. But we've been a partner of theirs now for over 10 years. All things are not equal on that platform in particular. And it's a constantly moving target. All the other platforms, be it LinkedIn, Career Builder, Monster, Dice.com, Glassdoor, all recruitment values. But just in the big world of recruitment, I'll just go out on a limb and suggest about 60% of all recruitment in the United States traffic is really governed in the Indeed.com ecospace.
Wow.
Everything else, 40%, is shared by all these other platforms. Now, it's not the only medium to recruitment, because after you've kind of exhausted that, you're saying, Jason, I've still got recruitment needs. What can you help me do? Then you want to elevate and you want to talk about another medium of recruitment called programmatics. Yeah, that's how the big companies like Marriott, Johnson & Johnson, they're leveraging this program. And you even can have a programmatic play of a strategy of recruitment. And then the other one that I love to talk about, we may or may not have time today, is the social media recruitment space. And we're even leveraging TikTok now. The platform is going to leverage TikTok in recruitment. Love to talk about social, love to talk about the data, love to look at deeply and make decisions based on data decisions, not just emotional decisions. But that's when we talk about recruitment assets. It's those logos, Glassdoor, Indeed, Dice.com. How are those tools performing?
How many companies are paying attention to their recruitment assets?
I would say about 10 to 20% of companies really are accountable to their recruitment assets, and really on a quarterly basis, which we like to do with our clients, inspect what we expect. That's scary. That means 80% of corporations are just running hard, spending money, and not doing a look back and saying, hey, I spent X. How much traction am I getting from X? How many impressions? How many clicks compared to my organic clicks versus my sponsored clicks? And is it really generating not just resumes, but quality resumes? And how can I elevate that? Boy, howdy. Every single company that I talk to, except for 1 in 100 maybe, has room for improvement there.
So when you think about what a company is willing to spend right now on a headhunter, like actually outsourcing the recruiting function to somebody to find a role.
Yeah.
And someone will spend 20 to 30% on average of first year salary. And we kind of don't really think about that. It's just sort of the cost of doing business.
Yeah.
But if people were willing to actually measure what they're spending on, goodness, like all these platforms, do you think they could save money?
I think you and I both know of an organization back in the day that actually had a significant multi-million-dollar spend in the search firm and headhunting space. And I don't want to rain on that parade, because that's a very valuable service. Some of my customers are headhunting and search firm type clients, and we're able to partner and help with them in significant ways to elevate their recruitment game, so to speak, to make sure that tools work for them. But some corporations are spending astronomical fees in headhunter spaces, and their objective could be to actually reduce the headhunter $2 million, $5 million budget and say, I'd like to get that under $1 million. And how can I own my recruitment brand and save on that expense and actually find better talent and build a culture within the organization? So yeah, I've got some clients that have actually done that. I think you know about that.
So
that was a loaded question.
So, well, hey, so to the companies that aren't managing assets,
Sure.
maybe give a few challenges, maybe ask a few questions, maybe help practically some leaders who are watching this reassess what they're doing, how they're spending, get more effective.
I would say to every leader that's listening on this conversation, one, how effective is your recruitment asset budget? Do you know? Have you inspected what you expect? Look at all your assets. Look at your overall spend. Our typical promise walking in the door is we're going to elevate 2 or 3 times the value of what your current spend. So if you're spending $100K and you're getting $100K value, if that could be a $200 or $300K value at no added cost, would that be a blessing and a help to you? We typically find that that's the case with an organization offering a lift at no added cost. So I think the first thing is a discovery conversation, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, to just talk about what are your assets. Let us ask the hard questions, and then we'll see if there's room for more dialogue. Yeah. The discovery conversation is key. I mean, we wouldn't go to a doctor and express we don't have a pain, and if he just gives a solution, that's ridiculous. We want to talk about what's the pain, what's the challenges. But I often do my homework before I take a phone call from that discovery conversation, and I can see where the friction is in the applicant tracking system. I can see the disparity in their projection of the recruitment brand on their recruitment narratives. I mean, who would want to cut and paste a job description and count that as a recruitment narrative?
Right.
Can we not talk about that all day long? Who wants to apply to that?
Yeah, right.
Give me some sizzle on the steak, so to speak. I'm getting excited. So
yeah.
Okay, I'll pipe down.
Well, let's go back to that. You've talked a couple times about the friction.
Oh yeah.
In the applicant tracking or the applicant process. Talk to that specifically, because I would guess that there are people watching who aren't even aware of what the process is.
Okay. So I'll speak to the SMB market real quickly, who typically change the company that's between, 5 million to 50 million, who may have moved and pivoted from a Paychex to a Paycom to a payroll to a ADP. Every time you pivot to another payroll service and they use a different module in their payroll service to support your recruitment efforts through their applicant tracking system, it creates another page on Indeed.com unwittingly and unsuspectingly. Who's going to get that cleaned up for you? I know an ad agency that does that quite well, who has a great relationship with Indeed.com, but I doubt you've made the call to get that cleaned up. And I find some companies have 3 or 4 iterations of themselves on Indeed.com, which, either way, also has branding and has company reviews about your recruitment brand and how much and how nice it is to work there. So I'll just say that there's a lot of factors that go into that. And if you don't keep that cleaned up and take a look at that, it's a problem.
Okay. So you're saying that there could be out on, let's say, Indeed.com, multiple iterations of my company profile.
Yeah.
And I'm not even aware of it.
Yeah. If you've used social media, if you've used multiple payroll services, likely that's the case. And 2 or 3 iterations. If you've changed payroll, there's probably another iteration of you on Indeed. We can get that cleaned up with a phone call and a quick email in 7 to 10 days typically. But what CEO has time to fix that or even look into that? Plus, building out your recruitment brand is so easy to do. And opportunities they give you at no added cost to put video content, employee testimonials, put up a nice banner, get your logo on there. If it's not, you are wasting valuable recruitment space. Remember, 60%. And again, it's not my favorite vendor, quote unquote. It is what it is. Yeah. That's just the dominance that they have. They're 8 times larger than their nearest competitor. You better be having a voice in that Indeed conversation.
Yeah.
Period.
So as a company, we've talked about the importance of being intentional about culture.
Yeah.
We've talked about being intentional with the recruitment, marketing, like branding.
Right.
But then be really intentional about the assets that you're using.
Yeah. And when I say intentional, I'm saying inspect what you expect. Take some time, 2 or 3 times a year, to go look at your spend, find out what it's getting. I'll give you another example. We just had a client was spending about $8,000 a year on a battery of about 15 to 20 different positions. And then looking at their spend, the way that they were spending the money, they weren't spending it the way that strategically it needed to be spent. And as a result, they were getting impressions, they were actually getting clicks, but they weren't getting resumes. And with a few tweaks and modifications around how to leverage that spend strategically by allowing it to spend longer, they actually got the traffic that they needed to fill the jobs and the resumes that they needed, but they didn't know. They just saw clicks and saw traction, but they didn't see the end result. So we were able to look and produce what we call a stoplight report. So if any of you want that stoplight report, call us about your budget. We'll be happy to produce that.
All right. Well, it's hard to believe this or not.
What is it?
Well, we're up against our time.
Oh my goodness. We barely started.
So Jason, what this means is we're going to have a couple follow-up conversations.
I guess so.
So we have barely scratched the surface on this conversation by just simply asking a few questions. I think the most practical thing you can leave with today is, what are you doing about your culture? What are you doing about your recruitment brand? And then have you looked into measuring the assets that you're using?
Yeah.
And if we could just leave you with those 3 questions, obviously we can point you in the right direction. But if you'll start there by going and asking a few of those questions of your team or of your colleagues or just of your company, that is a great place to start.
It's a game changer. It's a differentiator. You'll be doing something that your competition is not doing. You'll be elevating your recruitment brand. You're going to get a bigger bang for your dollar just by showing an interest in this topic.
All right. So obviously the purpose of Always About People is helping to create cultures where people thrive. We want to help create these cultures that would attract other people. But our hope is that then you would be able to share the culture that you've created with so many other people, that you'd be able to share what's actually happening in your company so that you can find the right people.
Couldn't have said it better.
All right. Well, I just want to give you one last statement.
Okay.
To our guest.
Mm-hmm.
How can I find the right people? Jason Bessire, go.
You don't have an I can't find them problem. You may have an I can't hire them problem, but you do not have an I can't find them problem. Today's big data is in such a way that we can see all the talent. We see their name, their phone number, and their email address and their cell phone. The question is, can you hire them? We can show you the data, and the data doesn't lie. How's that?
With that, I think we're done. I think you've challenged everyone who watches. This was awesome. Jason, we need to do this again.
Yeah, well, there's so many avenues we could go down, like hiring insights. What is data? Show me data. Prove it to me. Show me a compare and contrast recruitment brand. Show me what we're talking about here. There's a lot of show and tell stuff that we didn't even dive into. There's so much more conversation, but it's always changing too. That's exciting I know you and me both, of how fast things change. Companies sunset products, they add new products. What's the new and the latest and greatest? If you tried a virtual hiring event, okay, that's all. It's a teaser.
Oh boy. Well, here we go. We're going to have to do this again. Those of you who joined us live, thanks for joining with us. Those of you who are watching this later, we appreciate you tuning in. Again, you can catch us live on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on YouTube. You can also go back and watch prior shows. To those of you like Pete Torrey, thanks for joining us live. We appreciate you. Jason.
Chris, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. This has been a fun, lively conversation. It's always good to sit down.
It was quick.
It went by so fast.
Jason Bessire, Basir and Associates, thanks for joining with us again today. We'll see you next time on our next episode of the Always About People show.